Hi everybody, I'm Dr. Lisa Erickson Bryn, and today I wanted to discuss with you how to use a TENS unit. TENS units, first off, are fabulous for helping you to heal and belong, in my opinion, in every single first aid kit. TENS units were designed during World War II for athletes who had lost, say, a limb, like an arm or a leg, and they were having phantom leg pain. What we noticed with the TENS unit, once applied, is that these people were all of a sudden having less pain, and their brain, their body was learning how to re-educate the body itself to know that that limb wasn't there. So all of a sudden they're having less pain and able to go on with their life. Many, many years later, we've learned that TENS units have much more benefit than this. They re-educate the body as to what tone a muscle should be. We get more blood flow with a TENS unit on top of the skin, and there's so many benefits to it besides pain management. So I wanted to go through those with you, and then also some topical applications of a TENS unit for getting rid of elbow and finger injuries, specifically in my rock climbers. So this is a basic TENS unit. They come in a variety of different styles. I used to carry these, and they were hundreds and hundreds of dollars for clients, and now we can get them very affordably online. The hallmarks of a TENS unit is that this machine has a battery in it, and the battery runs current through the skin to these nifty pads that sit on the skin. So there are 4 pads and 4 leads. Some of you will see TENS units with 2 pads. I prefer the 4 better because the way that they work is the brain uses skin as a typewriter to tell the brain what is happening to the body. So a huge part of the brain is set up just for sensory input. Just think about your life. The air hits your skin. You have these pressure sensors on your skin for touching things. We get so much sensory stimulus input into our body just from what we touch, what we contact with our bodies. So that's how this TENS unit works. It has different leads. You'll see red and black, and I have it set up so that when you put the leads on your skin, you run them opposite. So very basic setup. You put the boo-boo in the middle, and you put your pads opposing on opposite sides with matching leads. So if you were to, say, injure part of your forearm, we would put all the pads on opposing sides of the injury, and then we would run electricity through the injury itself. So the way that a TENS unit works is it runs over the surface of the skin, does not go deep within the body, and we have different ways of helping a TENS unit to work. So different ways of setting it up. So I wanted to go through that with you for my clients that I have prescribed a TENS unit to in order to make the most benefit in your rehab. So TENS units are also perfect for people that have nerve damage. However, we are specifically using this in my clinic for chronic symptoms of pain, tendonitis, bursitis, chronic things that we're trying to retrain the body. 1, please stop guarding that region. 2, please send more blood flow to that region. 3, are you really feeling pain, body, or are you just saying something is wrong? So let's send some stimulus in there and re-educate that body part as to here and now, and not that injury that happened a couple weeks ago or even 5 years ago. The body is still talking about, prepared for it to happen again. Let's reset this and start from the very beginning. And that is why I love TENS units so much. So go grab yourself a TENS unit or the one that I sent you in my link. And then these pads, there are crappy ones on the market and there are good ones on the market, but the durable medical equipment, DME companies, hope that you just use these once and you throw them away. And that's not what they're designed for. So these pads are sticky, they are hydrous, they love water. So when you're done with them, I want you to unplug it, make sure your machine is off, and then I want you to put them in the sink, pour some water on them, and then take that pad and just stick it on the porcelain or the side of your sink and let it plump up overnight. And then when it's done, or if you're not using it, then you put it back on the sticky pad from whence it came and you store it. But these should last a very long time. If you have pads that aren't sticking, 1, you have oils on your skin, 2, you bought a crappy company, and if they want you to get new pads every day, or if you're on one of those programs, tell them thank you but no, and then let's get you some better pads. So anyway, that's a rough start on them. They come in all kinds of cool shapes. For hands and fingers, I prefer smaller pads versus bigger pads. For most of you with a finger injury and a palm injury and a forearm injury, we are specifically going after the area that is loading into your injury, okay? So it may not make sense in the beginning why I have you focusing elsewhere from where your pain is, but our approach is two-pronged. We're working where your injury is, and then we're also unloading that area of injury by working on nearby areas that load into it, okay? So it may not make any sense why I gave you your homework and where I want you to put the pads, but just bear with me, okay? So setting up your TENS unit, we have your pads that plug into left and right, and then on the top of the TENS unit you have these nifty knobs. See, the biggest mistake that you guys make is you go for the win and you turn it up as high as it possibly goes, and that is not what these guys are for. So I want you to put this on a gentle tingle. We have 2 settings. We have pulse width and we have pulse rate. The pulse width is when that tingle hits you, how aggressive of a tingle is it, right? How long in duration is that wave? And if you have nerve damage, say you've lost your spinal cord and you're unable to feel it, we want a really long pulse wave. However, for most of you with sports medicine injuries, we don't want a long pulse wave, and we almost want it to be a little shorter than longer. So when in doubt, put it in the middle, which is right about 160, 165, 170, goes from 30 to 260. Or we can turn that pulse wave down. So in most of you, I will have you set it right about 120. So right in there. So that is for your pulse width. The other one is your pulse wave, and that is how many waves do you have each time that we have this on. How much does it tingle and how much does it just do a big pulse? So we want it tingly because our goal is to stimulate the brain, to retrain your body is to what is that injury feeling here and now. So I'm going to have you set that pulse wave up nice and high. So for the majority of you guys, I had you set it up, if you can see where we're at, up near 120. And the whole goal is, 1, we're trying to help your nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord and all of your nerves. We're not trying to set it off and irritate the heck out of it. We've already done that with your injury, okay? So we're going to back off just a little bit. We're going to set this on a gentle cycle, and we're going to get your body used to it. We're not going to say, surprise, and we're doing this all the time, every day, all day. We're just going to ease into it. So instead of, many of these have settings on the bottom for constant, or for however many minutes you want it set at. I would take it from constant, and I would move it all the way over, so we're just at 15 minutes. That way when it's done, the timer will shut off, so you can fall asleep with this on, or you can go for a walk with it on, or some of you guys that were trying to rehab through a spasm that happens mid-loading, I'll have you put this on and run it up your shirt while we're doing easy climbing or an easy jog or whatever your sport may be, just to re-educate it. So we'll set that down, and then, yeah, perfect. So, and then for mode, I just put it on M for mono versus, there's so many different waves, and we don't want to, we could have a bunch of different waves going on at the same time, but let's just keep it basic. So go ahead and set that on. And then for your pads, these batteries, make sure you have an extra one, because some people tend to leave it on constant and then take it off. And yeah, you want to turn it off before you take it off, or it'll zap you one. And then make sure you have an extra backup battery just in case some of these don't come with the bestest of batteries. So excellent. So all right, taking your sticky pads. So when we have an injury, there are different pad setups for each. So if we have, say, a nasty case of elbow tendonitis, I'm going to have you load into different areas around the elbow. So we're going to get tricep. We're going to get forearm extensors. We're going to get into your flexor tendons. And then we're going to get over the top of your bicep. And the goal is with the injury in the center, we are running our currents across the injury, okay? So you kind of want to look and see where's your boo-boo, and then look at the color of your leads and try to run it through where your boo-boo is. I love the example of lateral epicondylitis or elbow tendonitis, where the extensors attach on the elbow, because this can be complicated, and often it can be a tricep tendon attaching near this and giving you the same symptom as many people think it's coming from the forearm, but in 10% of people, it's coming from your tricep. So we hit the tricep just to make sure that we're getting everything going. So yeah, we'll go ahead and hook all those leads up, hook the straps on there, and then go ahead and turn on your unit. And we want to turn it on just so, and it'll glow if it's on. We'll let you know that it's actually working. So when it's on, see, it glows. And then we're just going to turn it on just enough that you actually feel it. Everyone is different, okay? Some people are more sensitive than others, and you're going to feel it at like a 2 or a 4 setting. Other people, you have to turn it up kind of high for you to feel it. So for your TENS unit, a few different things. One, I want you to feel it on all the pads symmetrically, okay? Some units you may feel 2 pads and not feel the other 2. So dink with it, and if you're still having that problem, your unit is defective, return it. For the rest of you, just making sure that works. We're going to slowly keep inching. So I will turn it on, and then we just slowly turn the dial, like maybe a fourth of a number. Slowly turn the opposing dial, a fourth of a number, and then feel. Do I feel anything? No? Okay. I turn it a fourth of a number, so now I am at 3. I still don't feel anything. So then we slowly keep inching up until you start to feel it. And when you start to feel it, it will feel like a nice little tingle, or maybe a little jazzy something going on in there. And you may only feel 1 pad and not the rest, because it might be that you twisted one of these knobs and you only feel it on 2 pads and you have yet to turn the other one. So make sure that before you just walk away and let it run, that you have all the pads working on the same setting, that you feel the same amount of a sensation on all of the pads. And then you just close this darn thing up, and then it should have a clip on the back that you clip it to your belt. And then we also make sure that we put the front piece back on so we're not accidentally hitting things. So, and then also you can just wrap these around and then fold it up very nice. And then you can either run it up your shirt if you have a long sleeve shirt, or tuck it on your belt, or you can clip it onto your shirt, however you want to do it. So pertaining to your specific homework, if I have you working out with it, or just hanging out at home with it. So anyway, that's how a TENS unit works. That's how it works for lateral epicondylitis. If we want to swap it to medial epicondylitis, first I'm going to turn my TENS unit off. Always look at it when you turn it off and make sure you're going down in numbers and not up in numbers, or you will have a surprise. So perfect. And then when it's off, the bright glowy lights, the double eyes are gone. So perfect. So that was lateral epicondylitis. If we have a forearm issue, we're going to take the pads and we're going to change them. So one on the palm, one on the underside of the palm, and then we're going to leave the lower pad here, and then we're going to put the other one on the top of the forearm. So we are running our pads, 2 on the palm, 2 on the forearm, and we are running that. And just keep in mind, this goes through the skin, okay? It's not going deep in your body, deep in your muscles. We are using your skin as a typewriter, a keyboard, and we are sending sensory input to your brain to re-communicate to the brain how this area should be working, the blood flow to it, the tone of the muscles, how those muscles interwork with each other, who is tight, who is loose as a team, how they all work together. So that's very important. So yes, so if your injury is mid-forearm, or even into the wrist, or even into the finger, this is my setup, because we can't stick pads out on the fingers. It's kind of a long ways to go. So the muscles that attach through this region all live on the underside of the forearm. So if we're talking pulley, flexor tendon, not specifically a jam joint, but for tendons that attach down to the finger, lumbricals, this is a perfect setup for lumbricals. Perfect. So anyway, attach all your pads, and that is the setup. Forearm, forearm, finger, finger, and palm, palm, and this affects your extensor tendons, your flexor tendons, your tendons of your fingers, and also all the tendons that wrap through the wrist. Now let's say you have a wrist-specific injury. and it has nothing to do with your forearm or your elbow. Like say you fell on it or something nasty happened. I do advise doing the same setup for 10 to 15 minutes, but then we can move these closer to the wrist to get a little more specific for it. So what that would entail was you can move one here. Yes, between first finger and thumb, palm, and then also up through the forearm, lower forearm. And this just very specifically runs it through. Now, let's check your leads and make sure you have your leads correct, okay? Remember, we want them crisscrossing through your injury. So if your injury is on your back of your wrist, say here, we want to look and make sure, are these two pads on the opposing sides, do they have the same color of lead attached to them, right? If one is black, the other one better be black. Is it black? Oh no, it's red. You need to swap those out and make sure it's the same one, okay? And then same thing on the other side. This one crisscrossing, you have the same one there. Because our goal is to wrap electricity through the skin over that injury, okay? So the cool thing about TENS units is, one, you can't really screw it up. Two, you want to make sure when you're using it that you don't leave it on constant, because if you leave it on constant at a high level and things get irritated, you're doing too much and you're like slapping your body, giving it way too much input at once, okay? We want the body to see this input as being helpful and not as a attack, right? And if your body's fresh out of an injury, it doesn't know if you're trying to help it or hurt it, so we have to educate it and give it gentle input, gentle stimulus that's helpful versus like surprise, right? That kind of a thing. So that is how a TENS unit works for the forearm and for the finger. There's so many different ways of applying this. It's definitely helpful, but the biggest thing for you guys is just keeping in mind that these are not toys and they can cause electrical shock and that type of thing. So definitely make sure you have the darn thing turned off before you peel it off. I know that sounds stupid, but it's happened, okay? I took one of these in for childbirth. I was using it, and then I told the nurse I was ready to be done with it, and she didn't turn it off before she pulled it off, and she got a pretty good shock. At least it made me laugh. So anyway, if you have any comments, go ahead and enter them down below. If you have questions, I appreciate questions. My goal is to educate you guys so that you don't rely on us for the medical field to do everything for you as we have trained you to do. I want to teach you how your body works. I want to teach you how to work on your body, and then also common pitfalls that we can easily avoid. So these TENS units, they're fabulous. They work very nicely for areas that refuse to heal, or areas that are too tender to touch that we're having trouble working on, or chronic pain situations, or people that just have so much pain and they're really suffering and trying to get them out of pain. So I really like them. They don't really seem to have any major side effects whatsoever. And the machine companies have set the machine so that they don't go high enough to cause any sort of nerve damage. However, I want you guys to err on the end of being more gentle versus being more aggressive with it, because often people with their self-care tend to get a little over-aggressive, and I see more harm than good on that. So let's just be gentle, let's ease into it, and then reach out with questions as we go along with your rehab and your specific homework, because this is all part of one plan. And if you stick with it and you keep adding the little morsels in that I give you piece by piece with the major changes we've made, then we are good to go. It's just when you try to implement, I'm going to train through this and I'm going to hit it heavy on all of my goals without untangling the causes that gave you that injury in the first place. So changing your desk setup, changing your home care, your daily tasks and hobbies and activities, just unloading those slightly so we can heal. And then the other piece that I give you guys with your body work and your homework of softening up that muscular group that is loading into your injury. These are all pieces of the puzzle, and I kind of like to say I'm making chili and we're throwing all these fine spices in there. We started off with the meat and the beans. I apologize if you're vegetarian. tofu. And then as we start to build it and throw in specific spices at specific points, if you are that athlete that is testing your injury or seeing if it still hurts, you're throwing big chunks of rocks in my stew, and my chili doesn't taste very good. So just making sure that you understand that this is all part of the process. We're doing all this for a reason. And then as we build you this big, beautiful base and we get rid of all the things that are loading into your injury, then I'm going to give you the go ahead and say, risk factor 1, gone. Risk factor 2, attended to. Risk factor 3, not even around anymore. You are okay to start returning to your level of activity with this guidance. And we're going to test the whole way through and make sure that we are not accidentally adding in things that are sending you down the injury pathway. Because, long story short, we want to build up your tissues and prepare them for your sport and get them used to the level of activity and the intensity of activity that you intend to do, and not the other way around, that we're testing them and loading them in a way that is damaging and degenerative and not being helpful at all, but just keep throwing rocks and keep throwing rocks and damaging. So we want to make sure that we are being supportive, supplemental, and assisting and allowing the body to grow and develop and heal. And this takes time and it's exhausting, and for some people, impatience may play a role. However, I'd rather just see you for your care once or twice and not have you be a long-term client or a client with 80,000 other injuries. And if that is you, don't freak out. It's just that you have things to work on and a few understandings to grasp. And then all of a sudden we can build you this big, beautiful base and it will stay. And then you will be able to add all of your favorite parts of your sport in, and you won't keep getting injured. And so that's why many of you are working with me. At least, I think my average client, I see you guys once every 2 weeks. You work on your homework, maybe 3 or 4 visits, just to make sure we knock everything out that is a risk factor that keeps you from getting injured. And then once we wipe that smooth and get you started correctly, and we make sure we're not missing any little tidbits that are causing your injury to come back, then all of a sudden you guys just do awesome. And I'm so thankful for that. So thank you so much for tuning in. Anyway, long story short, I talk a lot, but that is a TENS unit. That is the how, the why, the when, and the where, and let's just run with it. And I look forward to hearing about your injury recovery. If you're not a client of mine, no problem. My goal is to give back. But if you have questions, you have problems, you can pop on to my booking website, book yourself in, and we can do an e-visit, and I can order x-rays, MRIs, all kinds of imaging, and we can get you going on homework. So that's the cool thing about the new virtual world, man. All right, thanks for tuning in.